I know why, and that's going to come in just a little bit, and it'll be very important. This is Jasmine Kilpatrick, Stephen's daughter. Now, after my mother passed away, it was probably within the week, the bank manager from First Heritage Bank, whose name is Rachel, contacted me and told me that my mother had recently been into the bank and she was upset, had a black eye. She said she had come home and found Stephen in bed with Jasmine, and Jasmine had on nothing but her bra and panties while Stephen was in his boxers. And when she confronted him about this, he became violent with her, which, by the way, was not the first time. He was actually put in jail about 8 or 9 years prior for assaulting my mother. Of course, she didn't press charges, and the case was eventually just dismissed. But Jasmine and Stephen were in bed together. This is from the branch manager's own voice. Now, this is Crystal Ellen Beavis. She comes into play because my mother had been buried for one day, and Stephen had this woman living in my mother's house. He would not let me go and get any of my mother's property, her vehicles, nothing. They kept everything. And it's going to come into play why it's important about her. You see, whenever my mother died, Stephen had said to her, which she would reveal to me later on, that Crystal Beavis is now the woman living with Stephen in my mother's house. She told me they met when he worked at Kroger's. They met in a checkout line one day and had been seeing each other when she lived a half a mile from him. This is when he assaulted her. He went to jail for domestic assault. Now you take Victoria. Remember in the beginning I had told you that he said Victoria was the nanny to his 2 girls. That was a lie. Victoria was the one who he was married to. They're the one that had the baby together weeks before he met my mother, claiming to be an agent with the law enforcement and owned all these pawn shops, the biggest story you've ever heard in your life. What I feel like is important here is Victoria was a hospice worker. She was sent to prison for defrauding these elderly people and dying people. You also have Crystal, who is a healthcare worker, mainly for hospice. This is obituary right here. Shows the death of Stephen and Victoria's daughter just weeks before he met my mother. This was never told to my mother at all. I only found this out recently after my mother's passing and I started doing my digging. Now, this is where it gets interesting now. November the 14th of 2024. Stephen was arrested for rape in Rutherford County, Tennessee. Now, I did a little digging and I found out who was involved in this. And as you can see, he had a long, lengthy record sheet anyway. And this came from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. I paid for this background check on him. $25, I got it. And it showed me everything I needed to know just from Tennessee. Okay. As I said, Victoria, there it is, for she's a healthcare worker, has a sister named Tracy Stevens. This is her and Victoria pictured together here. Now, Tracy was 14 years old at the time, and according to her, that is when Stephen raped her. As you can see by the witness list for additional parties in Rutherford County, her name as well as Victoria's name are listed as witnesses. So Victoria did absolutely nothing to prevent this. She actually went on the run with him. Now here's my mother's autopsy report. It says in here that she basically died of a combination of oxycodone, gabapentin, and Neurontin, and one more thing I can't pronounce. I'm not even going to go there. But what struck me is the minor blunt force trauma of the body. You see right there on the Office of Medical Examiner's own autopsy report that she had blunt force trauma to the body. Her evidence of injury was a 3 by 1 centimeter red-orange abrasion to the interior right breast, 2 8 by 8 centimeter contusions, and a 6 by 4 centimeter contusion on the right side of the abdomen. There are multiple smaller 3 to 6 centimeter and greatest dimension contusions on the left side of the abdomen. The anterior aspects of the bilateral 1st through 6 are fractured and have associated soft tissue hemorrhaging. And a 6 by 3 centimeter contusion is on the right anterior aspect of the arm. This shows here that she did have a, let's see, has a hemorrhage at the root of the aorta. That's going to prove important to me because in order to get this, there are several things that happen and don't happen. Okay, you mainly get these by high impact injuries after crash